Reanudo mi día de conejo, mi noche de elefante en descanso. Entro y digo, esta es mi inmensidad en bruto a cántaros. Esta mi grato peso que buscará abajo para pájaro. Esta mi brazo que por su cuenta Dios se halla. Estas son mis sagradas escrituras, estos mis alarmados compañones.
In 1992, when I wrote "We Are All HIV Positive" on my hand as a tattoo artist from Brooklyn, I said several things. One was that you may not separate the uninfected from the infected, as so many so-called liberal doctors wanted to do, by putting the infected on Plum Island, perhaps outside of New York City. You cannot separate the uninfected from the infected by denying them access to your country. You cannot separate the uninfected from the infected by putting the infected on a separate floor that has red danger, contagion signs, and giving them crap to eat, and instructing Catholic nurses not to administer painkillers to the guilty, and allowing Catholic priests to visit them and inform them of their future in hell if they do not confess that their entire life has been a crime. You cannot separate the uninfected from the infected by saying, I do not have AIDS, I have syphilis, but most assuredly nothing to do with HIV, and then allow them to die an early death because they would rather die of the disease than the stigma, as so many did and do, including my best friend in 1996, who would be living today if he had not been petrified of the stigma, and intentionally saw a doctor whose research was based upon the option and the opinion that HIV did not cause AIDS. A second opinion, or better yet, his own research with other researchers would have been smarter. He knew better. But he had told me since we had first met in 1989 that he would kill himself if he were diagnosed with HIV. No matter what I said to him, he continued to visit the one practitioner who would condone his denial for 6 years until it was too late. And the following year, protease inhibitors hit the market. The year after he died, no. You cannot separate the uninfected from the infected by saying, I do not suffer from this virus, I have been spared. Because one day, in one city, in one moment, you will learn that you suffer from some virus, some pathogen, something poisonous that will not exit politely from your body, and you will realize that you do not mourn the dead, you mourn the suffering of the living while they are still alive. No one can escape death, and worse than that, no one can escape life. Of anything. And everything that smells your blood and survives because of it. Many of us who have been infected with some virus already, as I was infected 20 years ago with hepatitis C, found through community research initiatives in New York City, Dr. Douglas Dietrich, who was one of the first doctors treating co-infection of HIV, HCV, and HBV, two of which require treatment at different times because each treatment is usually counterindicated for getting rid of the second or third virus. Many of us call for research and compassion from every individual before he or she is hit with an illness, and this can only be done by caring for and doing the research for someone who is sick. Research, caregiving, and accepting the virus that is having a blast on your bill. Anger, grief, acceptance, and more research. And completing the trial, as I did 2 out of 3 times. The second was too toxic. Third, happily, was pegylated interferon, Levitron, essentially chemo and hell on earth. Even with Vicodin and Procrit, Ecogen, to boost the hemoglobin and give me some quality of life while I was touring in Moscow and meditating and paying my rent. Work and research, the antidote to terminal individuality and self-pity are, at the end of the day, useful practices for dealing with the viruses that eventually kill us in our last years, like Alzheimer's. Not so dissimilar from age dementia, something that 10% of persons with AIDS years back still suffer from. Even after protease inhibitors, because the blood-brain barrier is not featuring the inhibitors in the brain. They are the ones with those hideous Louis Vuitton bags. You can see them a mile away. Hideous. Let us speak of autumn and the infidels. Like the augur and autumn leaves, both are the symbols of death. A woman is born, a homosexual is born as outlaws, gay woman, born to be stalked, tortured, beaten, born to live a life of traumatic stress, of hypervigilance, and compulsive hand washing or furniture arranging. Or calling a mother every day for the rest of your life, or never again. When you are certain that because of your actions she has had her house burned to the ground and then mutilated. My brother used to tell me that he had these horrific thoughts before he came home at night. And he would call home to make sure it hadn't happened. And now, in fact, this collective memory proves to be present, does it not? In countries which provide listings of homosexuals to the general public, in countries where online stalkers lure homosexuals to a private place only to kill them, in countries where homophobic religious fanatics bury homosexuals into walls, arrest entire gay cruise boats, does anyone expect that a homosexual will go to a public clinic for HIV testing or treatment? Of course. There is someone at the clinic who pretends to be an assistant who will call someone to follow you home and kill you and write Gabur, Jabur, faggot, infidel, insult to Christ or Muhammad on your door or your family's or both. Ethiopia, Uganda, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, South Africa, Jamaica, and even Greece, home of the Spartans. After all, the greatest fighters in the world, who knowingly adopted lovers who would stand in front of them and take a good bullet. And on and on and on. The worst thing in the world a person can be called is not a nigger, an Arab, a kike, or a whore, but a dyke or a faggot. And the double repression of women and woman as dyke makes it much worse for lesbians. This is what is called an infidel exponent. 2 times 2 means the train is coming, bitch, with a whole city on your back, and assuring the South African dyke footballer too successful, and therefore showing up a big man. You got it coming, witch.